I'm Max Sterling, welcome to LarpMix. As All Hallows Eve draws closer, an ethereal wind drifts through the veil and across the worlds of LARP, carrying whispers of dark tales and secrets untold, from their world to yours. These are Larptales From Beyond. So I wanted to share another true story with you this year, and this is a story that I had actually sort of forgotten about because it's not something as exciting as maybe some of the other true stories I shared in the past, but it is a true story nevertheless. So I thought this would make for a better tale than something fabricated or maybe a story that you have already heard in the past retold. So I'm going to share this true story with you, and I think I have one or two other stories from my years of LARPing of strange things that happened. It's interesting, the more time you sort of spend in the woods and at these camps, you will see and hear things that maybe are not explainable or easily explained. And this is one of those stories, and I hope you enjoy. So, it was about this time of year. It was, late fall, might have been, in the beginning of November, but, 99% of the leaves are off the trees, so they're almost completely done for the winter. And, it's sort of gray, cloudy days, and, the sun sets early, and we were having the last LARP of the year. Now, this is in Pennsylvania, which if you've ever been to Pennsylvania, we have very dense forest, and some of the state parks and like Boy Scout camps and stuff that you may play LARPs in can butt up against, just massive forest, hundreds or thousands of acres of just nothingness. So if you get off the beaten path too far, you could be in some serious trouble if you can't find your way back to camp. So we had played at this particular camp for many years, and during the sort of opening statements, they would always warn you not to go too far beyond the upper field, because beyond that there's a big ravine and then there's basically just nothing. So you don't want to go too far past that field. So the play area for the camp was basically, laid out on a map, and, it sort of ended at that upper field. The way it was laid out was there was like a main camp, a small camp, and then a long winding road that went up to this field that was just in the middle of the forest. It's very cool, actually, just a field in the middle of a forest. Now, this wasn't like a creepy pine forest or anything like that. It was just, the forest. So, nothing that, just visually would be like, oh my goodness, this is so creepy. But if you've ever been hiking in Pennsylvania, or if you've been in the woods in Pennsylvania-ish area, then those woods with all the vines hanging down and stuff, they can get pretty thick, and, with all the rock formations and stuff that occur, it can be, pretty treacherous, uneven ground as well. So, anyways, we had just come back from a module. Now, I'm not sure what your LARP would call module, but these are adventures or quests that we go on, so we would call them mods. And we just come back from a mod, probably fighting monsters or something. And we decided that on the way back, we would swing by the field and we would look for treasure chests. So in this particular game, they would take actual treasure chests filled with coins from the game or items from the game. They would hide them in the woods with locks on and use lockpicks to open them. So it's a very immersive experience. It's very cool. I always love that about this game. But finding the boxes was often challenging because you had your lazy people, and they would just sort of like throw them out the car window as they drive, and they'd be laying on the side of the road or on the side of the path. Sometimes they're broken, open, who knows. Other times, though, you had sadistic people that would hide them, and they would hide them inside of snowbanks. They would put them in bags and put them in the bottom of like deep puddles, and just up in trees and all kinds of weird stuff. So you really had to have a sharp eye to find these things. And the group I traveled with, we were always really good at finding these. So we decided that we would actually walk the perimeter of that field. And at the time anyways, whatever, late 90s, it wasn't unheard of that some people in some of these LARPs, would cheat. They would load up these boxes and they would hide them for their friends or hide them for certain groups. One hand washes the other. We hook you up when we're the NPCs, and then you hook us up when we're the NPCs. you've seen this. If you've been LARPing long enough, you've seen this type of activity. It's very unfortunate. It completely destroys the spirit of the game, and it doesn't get you anywhere. Like, don't cheat. Just play the game. It's fun. Work with what you have, overcome the hardships and struggles. There's no need to cheat. Like, you can't win LARP. At least that I'm aware of. Anyways, you can't win it. But, well, maybe some LARPs, but the LARP I played, you didn't win. So we thought maybe there might be some of that going on as well. And, hey, if we happen to find the loaded up box, that would be great, because whoever hid it there can't really say anything about it, because whether they say, oh, I hid it there for my friends, yeah, I don't think so. So we figured we'd take a look, because we had actually found boxes like that previously. So we came across what looked like a trail. Thinking back, it was probably a game trail, so it's probably just deer or something. But in our minds at the time, we thought maybe a person had walked back, somewhere to stash something. So we followed it off the back end of the field where you're not supposed to go, because if you're going to hide a loaded up chest for your friends, where would you hide it? You wouldn't want it in the play area. You would want that off the beaten path, right? So you could just tell them where it's at and they could go get it. So this is, at least our logic whenever we're, sort of wandering out of the play area. So we walked for quite a ways, and we get talking, and you're in character, or even if you're not in character and you're talking about just video games or something, it's easy to just sort of continue casually walking, and the next thing you know, we're pretty far away from where we started. Now, I, being a keen observer, very good sight, very good hearing, and I'm always sort of, keeping track of where I am. I've always been good at navigation. I always feel that I've been very good at sort of knowing where I am, what time it is, and how to get back to where I started. I've, used these skills many times over the course of my life, and I've almost always been correct. So I feel as though I have a very good bearing on sort of, where I'm at and where I'm going. The problem is that some people feel this way and they don't actually have those skills. So what happened is we eventually come to a stop and say, hey, we should head back. And me and one other guy turn this way. My brother and the other guy we're with turn that way. Now that's a big problem, right? Half your people think that the field and town is this way, and half of them think that it's that way. So I immediately say to my brother, hey, where are you going? It's this way. And he says, no, it's that way. So it's almost like a bad movie. We get into an argument where two of us are saying it's this way, two of us are saying it's that way. They're not saying it's this way or that way. It's completely 100% the opposite direction. Now, you may not know this about me, but I actually went to a pretty upscale private school to fly planes. Whenever I got off high school, I decided I wanted to be a pilot, so I actually went to college to fly planes, commercial jets. So during my flight training and all this, one thing that we learned was called Dead Reckoning, and that's the title of this story, is Dead Reckoning. And what Dead Reckoning is if you have no sort of instruments, and you're just sort of flying by feel and by sight, and just sort of, where you think you should be going. This is called, Dead Reckoning. And I always thought I had really good skills as far as Dead Reckoning is concerned, just sort of, like I said, knowing where I'm at. And this other kid also thought that he had these skills. The problem is, in this particular scenario, I knew he was wrong, and he just 100% thought he was right. And unfortunately, so did my younger brother. So I tried pulling the big brother, older sibling trip on him, and you got to follow me, blah, 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 and he wasn't having it. So finally, eventually, after an argument, we parted ways. Me and my one friend went this way, my brother and the other guy went that way. I told the guys with, I was like, you know what, they'll figure it out, they'll turn around eventually and come back. So we walk, and sure enough, 15, 20 minutes later, we're back at the field, walk back to the tavern, we make some food, start, trying to get some hooks for the next module or the next adventure, see what's going on so we can have something ready to go whenever these idiots eventually come back. So we do all this stuff, and it starts to occur to us that it's getting dark out, and they're not back yet. So we go around, we ask a bunch of people if they've seen them. It's a pretty large LARP, but it's been the same people for many years, so everyone sort of knows each other, either by character name or possibly by real name, but you have an idea of who people are that's there. It's not just like a once a year thing and it's always different people. This is a group of people where it's, you know, 50 to 100 people and it's always the same people, so you get to recognize everyone over time. And since we'd all been going there for a few years, you know, you could just ask, you know, hey, have you seen my brother? And people know who I'm talking about. But no one had seen him. We go to the NPC shed, you know, monster shack, whatever you want to call it at your game. But we go there to ask if anyone has seen them. No, because we thought maybe they had gotten hooked on another adventure module or something, or maybe they found a chest and came back. Who knows? But nobody had seen them. So finally, I looked to the other guy and say, you think these idiots are still up there in the woods? And he says, I don't know. So we go all the way back up to this field. You know, we're looking, you know, like we're going to be able to see them. I mean, you could see, I guess you could see pretty far because most of the leaves are off, and we're up on an elevation because it's like a ravine. You know, we're listening, don't hear anything, don't see anything. So finally, I'm like, yo, let's just start yelling and see if they yell back. Now, when I say yell, I know that probably everyone, at least at one point in their life, has probably yelled as loud as they could, but it's not something that you probably do that frequently. If you haven't recently just yelled at the top of your lungs, I'll tell you, it's an interesting experience. I'm not talking about screaming. I'm not talking about a short burst. I'm talking about just literally opening up and just yelling as loud as you can and trying to project and force yourself to yell the loudest you're able to yell. If you haven't done that, try it sometime. It's pretty interesting. Just, it's a push on your body that, you know, it's interesting. I don't know how else to explain it. I mean, it sounds like I'm explaining something sort of rudimentary to you, but if you haven't just yelled recently as loud as you can, you know, next time you're in the woods or you're someplace where there's no one around, I wouldn't suggest doing it like on a subway or on a bus or something, but someplace, just yell, and not just a short burst, like yell and hold it. And just, you know, it's interesting the feeling you get after that. But anyways, you know, we cup our hands and we're just yelling, just screaming into the void. I mean, just, there's the forest open before you and you're just screaming into it. No particular direction. You know, we would yell, he'd yell, I'd yell. And eventually, I mean, our voices started to hurt so much, like we really would just wait a minute, take turns, and then just, you know, just yell. We were trying to yell their names at first, and then we just sort of started yelling. I'm hoping that maybe if they did hear it, they'd think maybe it was just battle, like LARP battle going on, and that would draw them back. So we're up there yelling for maybe like 10 minutes. It seemed like a really long time. And eventually, just sort of straining to hear, just with my ear to the forest, I know it sounds silly, I hear this so just super faint, hey. And I don't know how else to explain it other than it sounded like they were 100 miles away. It was so faint. The other guy didn't even hear it. And I'll tell you what, if I had listened to heavy metal music in my car one notch higher in my youth, I wouldn't have heard it either. It was so faint. And I heard it. And I look at the other guy, I'm like, listen, man, I hear them yelling. We need to keep yelling so they can find their way. So we would take turns and we would count basically like a minute, and then one of us would yell, count a minute, the other one would yell. And then eventually we started to be able to hear them yelling a little bit easier. And then finally, basically just as it was like dark, these idiots, we see them come walking up, you know, the ravine out of these woods. And I'm not sure how much time had passed. It had to have been a significant amount of time. It had to have been like 45 minutes. I don't think it was maybe like an hour or longer, but it was probably a good 45 minutes. And that was with them moving at pretty good speed coming back. And when they came out of the woods, they were so mad. And, you know, of course, I didn't let up on them. I'm like, oh, you idiots, you know, you went the wrong direction. You should have listened to us. And me, you know, power tripping on my little brother, like, man, you gotta listen to me, you know, I'm your brother, you always come with me. It's like, you don't go off with these idiots, they don't know, and, you know, as older siblings do. And then, but they were really mad. So we're walking back to the tavern, and sort of we're poking fun at them and stuff. And they're like, I don't understand why you guys didn't wait up for us. And me and the other guy started looking at each other. And we're like, what the heck are you talking about? Wait up for you? Like, you idiots went that way. We went this way, the right way. You should have came with us. And they're like, no. It's like, we walked for a little ways, and then, it clearly wasn't the right direction, so we turned around and came back, and we saw you guys, so we just started following you, but we were yelling at you, and you wouldn't wait up. Like, what do you mean you're yelling at us and we wouldn't wait up? It's like, by the time, whatever, dude, we would already been back at the tavern. And they said that they saw us. Now, keep in mind, these are two bigger guys, black cloaks, furs, because we were playing barbarians at the time, in sort of like a dead wood, you know what I mean? Our blacks were the blackest blacks, but at the time I was all gossed out and stuff. I had, long acrylic fingernails, and wore eyeliner and stuff. So, I mean, we always made sure, we had the darkest cloaks and stuff. And you're telling me that you saw us in the woods and you were following us? While we were at the tavern? Okay. But they insist that they could see us ahead of them, and that they were yelling at us to wait up. And we just kept, going further and further, and they just kept walking. Now, keep in mind that they were walking 100% in the wrong direction, just into the forest, just into hundreds or who knows how many acres of just nothing. And you're following us? Man, I'm back at I'm eating a microwave burrito, dude. Like, you're not following us. So they insisted, and even to this day, they insist that they were following us in the woods, and that we were jerks, and that we just sort of, ran back and doubled back on them. Well, I'll tell you what. I don't know what they were following, but they should be very happy that they have friends like us to come look for them. And I think that maybe, just maybe, if your LARP has boundaries set, that you should always stay within them, because when you get out on the fringe, I guess there's no telling what lies beyond. But fear not, for this is just a tale of my world. Just hope that my words were the only thing crossing through the veil from my world to yours. I hope that you like that story. It is very much a true story. As far as what they were following, oftentimes I thought that maybe it was just trees swaying in the wind, maybe one tree behind another, and they thought they saw something they didn't. There's also rock formations that could be misleading with the shadows, and sort of near dark with this gray skies and stuff. Vines and stuff swinging. Who knows, bear, deer, maybe animals. I would say maybe other LARPers, but they were so far out of the way that there's no way there were other LARPers that far out there, unless they too were lost completely. Hikers, I don't know. But if they say that they really thought it was us, and it was, discernible figures that were the two of us, I mean, to me that's pretty interesting, because it definitely was not us. Now, is it possible they were mistaken? Who knows? Being the late 90s, teenagers, not me, but knowing the other folks that I travel with, were they, one toke over the line? I don't know. But an interesting story nevertheless. I often wonder why, when we get up there and we saw the ravine, that it wasn't really that terrifying of a drop-off for them to always warn people not to go off that side of the field. I almost wonder if maybe, did something else happen there? Maybe, the people that led the game maybe knew and they didn't want us to go up there? I don't know. There's a lot to sort of unpack with, could'ves in this story, but I like to believe that they were just mistaken. But pretty interesting tale, and I hope that you'll agree. If you like this story, please subscribe to my channel. Please give it a thumbs up. I do these stories every year around this time. I'm not sure if any other channels participated this year, but I'll include a link at the end so you can go back through other years if you haven't heard these stories before. There's lots of, fun sort of, creepy stories that are fun around this time of year. But, I hope you enjoyed it. And of course, as always, adventure on. Should always use the buddy system at LARP. I mean, if you got people that care about you and will come look for you, that's very important, because I'll tell you what, if you're at a game by yourself and you end up in a scenario like that, especially if you're a newer player and maybe people aren't sure who you are, you can find yourself in a lot of trouble. If you've ever gotten lost in the woods at LARP, or if you ever even got lost in your camp at a LARP, I know a lot of big festivals have camps, and you set up your tent over here and you're all the way over here, sometimes it's easy to get turned around, especially at big events. Something like Penzic, if you're an SCA, or some of these larger overseas festivals. If you ever gotten lost yourself, drop a comment below. I'd be interested to hear it. Also, if you've ever had any strange experiences at a game, I'm always interested to hear those. The same camp where this story occurred, I had another experience, and that may be a video for another time. Since you've stuck around this long in the video, I'll just go ahead and tell you, in that field that's in the woods, one time, I actually believe that I saw a UFO. And as I mentioned in the story, I did go to college to be a pilot, so as far as when it comes to aerial phenomena, whatever, planes and stuff, I think I have a pretty good grasp on what I'm looking at if I see something in the sky. But that evening I saw something that was triangular shaped, and very large, very quiet, and basically, if you could imagine just a black triangle, there are no lights, just sort of moving through the sky. And the only thing that sort of tipped me off is that when it would fly over, the stars behind it would vanish. So you'd see sort of this triangular object, and you'd see stars up here, and if you're down here looking up, the stars would vanish in this triangular sort of pattern. I would say it was a cloud, but there wasn't a single cloud in the sky. It was one of those perfectly, just beautiful, clear, starry nights, where it's a little bit chilly, so it's like everything is real crisp, so like it's almost enhanced, if you know what I'm talking about. And yeah, I was so surprised by this sighting, I actually contacted, MUFON or whatever, which is something I never thought I would do, because fun fact about me is I don't believe in any of this stuff, that type of anything. So I reached out to them, I filed a report or whatever, just because it was that compelling to me. Now, do I ever think about that and like question my existence or anything? Like, no. Realistically, it was probably like a blimp or a cloud or something stupid. Who knows? But to me, that night in that moment, it was real, and a lot of other people saw it as well. I mean, we were basically having a LARP battle, and all of us that had been defeated were standing on the sideline, and we're just looking at this thing. But yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting. But anyways, that's the same camp that this strange story took place at. Not the same camp though as my other story with the bunk, if you've seen that video. Anyways, I've rambled on long enough here in the bonus content. So, but if you're interested in that story, maybe that could be a story for next time. We'll see what next All Hallows Eve brings. Take care.